Welcome back to Daily Connections. No matter if it's your daughter's brownie troop, or your church rummage sale committee, or your company's latest project, the opportunity to be a successful leader awaits you. So what does the job entail? Here to provide the essentials to improve or enhance your leadership performance is Anita Zinsmeister. She is president of Dale Carnegie Training of Central and Southern New Jersey. Hello there.
Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully.
Very excited about this. I love leadership things because, you know, I definitely think that if you are a good leader, you're successful. You know, you can be successful in so many things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't you start me out with, like, what are the habits a person should have to help develop the leadership abilities?
Sure. Well, first of all, one of the things is to have an attitude of continuous learning, of looking to become better at whatever it is that you're doing. So always wanting to become better, and having that attitude's absolutely key.
Key. I like that. Yeah.
And then it would be looking for role models who are leaders, people that you might admire as a leader, and observing them and seeing what is it they do that causes them to gain respect and be able to influence others.
Got it.
And then as you observe that, start taking on some of those same behaviors yourself so that you can incorporate or develop some of that leadership skills.
So maybe picking one thing at a time and then see if I can start to incorporate that into my life.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Ben Franklin, that's what he talked about in terms of his improvement, is he picked one thing at a time, and you work on that until you develop that new habit.
Okay.
And then you can go on and move on to another area to improve.
What would be a good example of one thing to start with?
Sure. Well, one of the things you can work on is communication skills. Great leaders have the ability to communicate ideas clearly, concisely, and even persuasively, or listening skills. So you might take an opportunity to speak up, whether you're at a volunteer function where maybe you can take on a leadership of a committee perhaps, or if you're involved in a community group, you might want to say, hey, I'll speak about this, right, or I'll give a report on this.
Okay.
So it's being able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Great. Now, which leads me into the next thing, which, what would you say are some of the main characteristics of great leaders?
Yeah. Well, great leaders are listeners. You know, a lot of times people think that it's all about speaking, but in fact, it's understanding, you know, what it is that people need to express, and really taking the time to listen so that you can then help to guide and influence other people in other areas.
And respond. Okay.
So that's one of the characteristics, certainly the ability to communicate your ideas. And a lot of times leaders are those that have that ability to influence the people by what they say and the way that they communicate it. Leaders are also are accountable. They're willing to take responsibility for things and be accountable if something goes wrong. Be able to have guidance.
Great point of leadership. Right, not passing the blame onto whoever else is around them.
Yeah.
Take ownership of those mistakes.
Yeah. They're motivators. You know, leaders are people who motivate people, get them to do things because they want to do them, and inspire them to take action.
That they might not normally do necessarily.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you also say that leaders are great visionaries. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Sure. A leader is someone who can see the positive future state, you know, that see the possibilities that are out there, and can envision that, and then they can inspire people to follow them along to create that new future.
Sure, and then again, then there goes the motivation.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
if you're visionary, then they get the people excited for new things coming up.
You bet.
I love that. Now, what about any specific things a person can do to help develop or sharpen these skills? What are some techniques for that?
Well, certainly it starts with developing confidence as a leader.
Okay.
So if you are involved with a group, let's say you mentioned earlier if you're with a rummage, in charge of the rummage sale, right? So it's being able to step up and say, you know what, I'll take charge of this. I'll be the committee chair of something. Or certainly if it's in a business environment, it's being willing to head up a project. So it's stepping up and saying, you know,
I'll give
Look
this
at me,
a try.
I'll give this a try. And then even if you need to enlist other people along the way to learn from them or to help you, it's being able to take that responsibility is one of the things. And that takes some confidence, but we develop confidence by first acting as if we are confident. And as we start to do that and have successes, then confidence builds.
Sure.
And then we stretch our comfort zones to try and take on new things.
And I really like what you say about, you know, you can start with a small project. I don't have to take on the universe in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
I can start with a little project. And, you know, if I am successful, I can build on that. And right away, that's going to build my self-esteem.
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, people, especially in the volunteer world, they're thirsting for people who are willing to step up and take some responsibility and leadership. There's so many opportunities to get involved.
Step in.
Yeah, and whether it's any kind of a charitable organization is looking for members. It's even if you're already part of a group, it's saying, hey, I'll take on a little bit more. And that's the first step. That's one of the ways that we can start with
I like that. That's a really great place to start. You know, start with little things, and your community projects that pretty much everybody's involved in. Right, step up to the plate a little bit and let's take on some things. So we really need need more leaders out there.
Absolutely.
Good. Now, how can enhancing your leadership abilities enhance your self-esteem?
Well, clearly they do go hand in hand. You know, as you become a better leader, you take a step up, take some responsibilities, have success with a project or something that you're doing. Your self-esteem will build.
Sure.
And leaders are people who are confident. You know, a lot of times, even if somebody is not quite sure what they're saying, if they say it with confidence, you have more credibility and you build more respect. So that's a key factor that comes with confidence.
And just having that confidence and that aura, that automatically makes people listen more.
Absolutely. If you know your stuff, but you aren't able to communicate it in a very confident way, it starts to cause people to say, well, are they really know what they're talking about? Versus if you communicate, you're sure of yourself, you carry yourself well, boy, people just instantly.
And you might not have any idea of what you're talking about.
Well, hopefully that's not the case, but it's got to start somewhere.
Sure,
right?
That's good. I like that. And then the more successful you are with these little projects, though, the more confidence you build, and
you can take on larger projects, and people see you in that light as a leader and start to seek you out in that role, which also builds your self-esteem when people are looking to you.
Sure, absolutely. Now, what about how can enhancing my leadership skills help me in my personal relationship? That one.
Oh, it absolutely is a factor. As we talked about, leaders are good listeners, and relationships are all about, if we're good listeners, it helps to do that. People who are good leaders are people that others like.
Okay.
Right. We like to follow people we trust and respect.
Huge.
And so if we've got good interpersonal skills, it can really help with that. Dale Carnegie wrote the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Still one of the best sellers of all time. If you Google it, it's on one of the top lists. And in here, in that book, he talked about 30 principles, ways to approach people to get better results, to strengthen relationships, to gain cooperation, to even change people's attitudes. And that works whether you're in the business world and dealing with peers or people in other departments. It works with community type projects you might be involved, and it works with families, with our significant others, with children. Yeah, so these principles are a great way, and if somebody wants to say, well, how do I develop these, that's a great way to get that book and
a great way to start.
Yeah.
And then what's really great about that is, being the role model for your child. The women taking on these things that, okay, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to, try to get in leadership roles. It's setting such a good example for the children, that are going to be growing up, and hopefully they're going to be doing the same thing by taking those cues on.
You bet. We are leaders in our family too, right?
We sure are.
And so that's absolutely key, and it's a great way to demonstrate to our children, what's possible, so that they can see us in that light, and then they start to see themselves in that light.
And they start to do the same things.
Yeah.
Now, one last tip real quick. How about dressing for success? Is that...
Yeah. One of the things that we would recommend is that you wear things that help you to feel good about yourself.
Got it.
So if you dress, in a professional manner, and when you're, those days when you've got something and you feel good.
Yeah.
When you feel good, that allows us to feel more confident in our approach, and it just sort of permeates things. So we certainly recommend that dressing for success is one of the ways that it all kind of ties everything in together.
Help enhance that confidence
it helps
a little bit.
Our first impression that we give to others, and when we get a positive reaction to that first impression, it builds from there.
We keep going with it.
You bet.
Great. Anita, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you, Tracy. It's been fun.
Awesome. Good.